Well, hi, it's Nicole Brandon, and welcome to Unlimited Life. It's wonderful finding you here. We started this show a couple years ago, and it was my deepest desire to bring to you the top experts in the world that were able to bring to you the tools, the secrets, the keys, and the techniques to leading and living an unlimited life, an unbridled life, a life on the other side of the boundaries and borders, and how to truly have that kind of life that you dream of, desire, and deserve. And over the past few years, so much has happened with this show. We are now international in almost 200 countries. We have a conjunct television program where many of the guests have come on, and we've been able to broadcast live over 600 forms and platforms. So it's really been an extraordinary journey, and now we're shifting the schedule just a little bit. So our regularly broadcast time, which is 1 p.m. on Saturday, will now be live, 3:30 p.m. So as of next week, you will find us here at the new time, which is 3:30 p.m. on Saturdays, or 6:30 p.m. if you are in Eastern Time. And then we are also now on times. And so you can find us on Passionate Living, which is Times, OMTIMES.com. And you can find us on Times on Mondays, Pacific Time, 6 p.m., Eastern Time, 9 p.m. And so find us here as of next Saturday. You'll be able to find us live at this time, 3:30 p.m., Mondays, 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. on Passionate Living. On Times, of course, our bridal show. You can always find us there. And we will keep you updated and posted on all new shows, all new guests, amazing tools, techniques, technology around the world. We also had Paul Lazaris on the show, and he was talking to us about Slingshot, this incredible device for water and bringing water into countries. And there is a huge screening here in the Los Angeles area on the 20th. So if you would like information, please contact me at Nicole@NicoleBrandonWorldwide.com. That's Nicole@NicoleBrandonWorldwide.com. Just drop me a line. I am happy to make sure that you are part of this extraordinary, amazing screening and event. And again, you can always send a text message, 55678. Just simply send a text to 55678, and the message is Nicole. And you can get a copy of today's show or any of our archive shows and performances. Today I am playing you an encore of one of my favorite guests, Dr. Paul Scheele, as he describes photo reading, the genius mind, the unlimited unconsciousness, and how we really can open our brainwaves, open our consciousness, open our ability to see and to do more than we ever imagined before. So enjoy the show and find us live here next week at 3:30 p.m. as we go live on our new prime time here at Unlimited Life. Enjoy Paul Scheele, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Well, hi, it's Nicole Brandon with Unlimited Life, and welcome to our show. I am so excited about today's show and today's guest. When we created this show and we talked about what would it be like to live an unlimited life, what are the tools, what are the techniques, what would be needed, what would be necessary if we really could every minute of every second of every day live the kind of life we've always dreamt of living and break through paradigms, cross borders, cross lines, and really have not only the life that we've always dreamt of living, but a life that was just unbelievably what we understand being able to be here in human form. Have the kind of life that we have the freedom, that we have the joy, that we have the happiness, that we have the brain power, that we have the physical endurance and strength, and all of these tools and techniques. And so each week, for months now, we've been bringing you guests, and each one more extraordinary than the next, each one more versed with their wisdom, with their knowledge, and specialized in each field in which, we've brought you this incredible medicine and science and healthcare. And today's guest really is the epitome of an unlimited life. What he teaches and the way he teaches, and it is so multifaceted. It is so freeing. It is so extraordinary that really, if I were to have, we talk about having an encyclopedia, the way that we used to have, and you would look something up and there would be the picture and the description. If you really had to have a description and a picture of what it would be like to lead an unlimited life, you would find Paul Scheele in his work. It truly is the pinnacle of what I've been trying to bring to you for so very long. So I'm so thrilled and so excited that he is with us today. So Dr. Paul Scheele is the CEO of Scheele Learning Systems, and we will talk about what those learning systems are. He has influenced a diversity of organizations through his work in problem solving, creativity, communications, accelerated learning, and we'll find out exactly what accelerated learning is, and of course leadership development. As a CEO of 2 organizations and as a consultant to many other organizations, he actively applies his expertise to advance progress and to overcome challenges. Paul speaks, he facilitates, he mentors, and he consults with for-profit and nonprofit organizations. And I love this because it says he believes that there are untapped, brilliant resources within every organization and within every individual. I love that. I'm going to repeat that. He believes that there are untapped, brilliant resources within every organization and every individual. I think that's amazing. His work has led to the achievement of just extraordinary results around the world. His passion in sharing how to activate the rich resources within the mind and connect the power with the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual influences. He has transformative programs, and we will talk about so many of those programs today and how they apply to you and to your individual life. He has been able to obtain and quadruple bottom line results with high returns on investments, and it's amazing. I've had the sheer pleasure and the opportunity to see Paul so many times speak. And I can honestly say, we've talked about how I've been to events around the world. He's my very favorite speaker, and he is my very favorite host. And when people ask me why, because people ask me all the time, who is your favorite? And I always say Paul Scheele. And it's not just the knowledge and the wisdom, because his knowledge and his wisdom, it's just astounding. You sit there and your chin hits the floor because it's so incredibly wise, and it's so incredibly straightforward and so incredibly true and possible. But his sense of humor and the way that he shares the information just makes it so accessible. And, you know, I've taken the photo reading course myself. I know it's changed my own life, how I read, how I retain information. And so, you know, I can go on the entire show and just talk about his biography and his background and his history, but I really want to bring him on. But I will tell you that he earned a PhD in leadership and change, which I absolutely love that he works for leadership and change, because he really does know how to break those paradigms. And he has a master's degree in learning and human development technologies. He has a bachelor's of science degree in biology, and his really rich background includes studies in neurolinguistic programming, accelerated learning, and pre-conscious processing. And he's really known worldwide for his discoveries and his transformative learning expertise. And he is a partner in Learning Strategies Corporation, and he is a publisher of many human development programs, and so I can't wait to bring him on. So please, it is my joy, it is my honor, it is my privilege to bring on Paul Scheele. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Nicole. You know, I want a recording of that. I want to wake up to that every single day.
Well, it's amazing. You know, I was looking at your resume and your bio, and every line I would say, I mean, it's one thing is more amazing than the next. And truly, as I was, sharing in the beginning of the show, people ask me all the time who my favorite speaker is, and without a breath or a second thought, I always say it's you. I mean, truly, you are the most enchanting, the most entertaining, and the wisest person I know. So it's just to have all of that wrapped up together. So tell us a little bit about what is accelerated learning. Why don't we start there?
Well, I think I need to go just a little bit further back, because when I was growing up as a child, I discovered something about public education that I think I was privileged to see early on. See, my father became a consultant for the American International Development Consultancy to the Israeli government in 1960s. 1962. It was the last AID consultancy that the government sent over. And so I had the opportunity to live in Israel for 9 months, and I went to an American school there. And it was very connected with the outdoors, nature. I mean, classes were held in little rooms, but a lot of the time we spent outdoors. It was outdoor, and it was experiential, and I was in second grade, and it was spectacular. I loved it. And about 2 months before the end of the school year, we moved back to New York, where we had our home, and I finished out the last couple of months in the New York City schools, or public schools. And oh my gosh, what a difference, sit down, be quiet, no noise. I was out in the hallway bringing something to the office for my teacher, and I was giggling and laughing and running down the hall. I got pulled in the principal's office. I got the riot act read to me. It was amazing. And I thought, what a different universe. There's got to be, people have to understand that there's a better way to learn. So I struggled in public schools. And eventually I came to realize that a lot of the challenges I was having in school were because of hallucinations I was having about that I wasn't good enough. I was imagining every time somebody didn't know what was going on, there was something wrong with them. And if I was confused ever, that was not a good thing. I never made the connection that not knowing is the precursor to learning. That you need curiosity, you need to not know, you need to be motivated to try to figure out things in order to have your brain really wake up. So by the time I got through with college, I started looking into how do we change this system, how do we learn more effectively, and I had the opportunity to study the work that came to America from Georgy Lazanov, who was a Bulgarian researcher and psychiatrist who had developed something called super learning. It was written about in a book called Super Learning, and he had the Suggestopedia Institute in Sofia, Bulgaria. And these were a set of principles that would let people learn languages at thousands of times faster than most people would with traditional language learning. I mean, in a single session, you could learn 1,000 words compared to, 15 or 20 in a traditional language class in the same amount of time.
Wow.
Yeah, so when his work came to the U.S. in the early 70s, there was a man named Peter Klein that became a colleague of mine. He was one of the first Suggestopedia instructors and became one of the key voices in this burgeoning field that came through Ames, Iowa, through Dr. Donald Schusterman. And Peter Klein, Donald, and others were bringing this concept of suggestive, accelerative learning and teaching into the United States. So I would say, the second generation of people trained in these methods, and I began applying this in business for human resource training and development, in public seminars, and public schools were starting to hire us to bring in these principles and so on. So it was a remarkable thing. So think of it this way. When you were a child, how did you learn your language? I mean, you didn't sit in rows looking at a blackboard, right? Nobody told you, be quiet, sit still. I mean, you were engaged fully. If you watch a baby learning about their world, everything's going in their mouth. I mean, they're totally engaged. They're curious. They love it. And if you mapped the acquisition of knowledge and skills prior to going into school. I mean, it's just accelerating upward. It's amazing. You get to school, it plateaus and starts dropping off catastrophically because we're stressed. We're shut down. We're told to obey and to comply, and we're just, everything about our brains just goes numb at that point. And most of us figure out by first or second grade, oh my gosh, it's not going to get any better than this. so what accelerated learning, what accelerated learning did is it said, okay, hang on. When you learned anything, how to walk, how to talk, anything, you were fully engaged. The first thing that happened is you got some kind of clue about what it was that you were going for. That's called the decoding stage, where you're trying to get a handle on what it is that's coming at you. The second is full immersion. It's what Georgy Lazanov referred to as the concert. It's where your non-conscious resources, what he called the paraconscious, just gets it all. And there's no rational, sequential anything. It's just you're fully immersed. You're absolutely in it. And then the third stage is what was called activate. That's where you now start to zero in on what it is that you're trying to get. And so you become active with it. Active, questioning, purposeful, focused. Finally, at the end, you go to this kind of focused attention. So imagine a funnel, and the top side of the funnel is facing the world when we come into it. We're just taking it all in. It's just all
what
going in.
What a beautiful image. Oh my gosh,
and then eventually we focus down into maybe a specific, like, what's the difference between a B and a D? I'm not really seeing it, right? It's a stick with a ball, but the ball faces this way with a B and that way with a D. Okay, so that's a very narrow focus of attention, right? Well, what happens when we go to school? The funnel gets turned wrong side up. And so now the teacher's got your attention, said, I'm going to put something on this board, and you better learn it. We don't even know what that means yet, right? You better learn it because you're going to be tested on this. And if you don't do well on the test, all we know is that terribly bad things are going to happen that are unnamed at this point, right? We just go into stress response at that point. So do you get how what we're doing is we're turning that funnel right side up again? That's what accelerated learning is. And it allows us to use this magnificent information processor that we were born with, but that got shut down by traditional methods of education.
That's incredible. So how do you, when you turn that funnel upside down, so now all of a sudden you're able to learn the way that you learned when you were a baby, apply that to your life, your everything around you, what is it ever too late to turn the funnel around?
It's never too late. In fact, you know Chen Yi Lin, the Spring Forest Qigong master. He just did his retreat here in Minneapolis, and there was a man in there, 92 years old, and fully engaged, just spot on. I mean, he's kind of hunched over, but I'm telling you, he was excited. His energy was moving. He was doing all the exercises. And when he left Hawaii to come here to Minnesota in October, right, to have this experience, his family said, Dad, what are you doing? Why are you getting on a plane? Well, you can't even fly. What are you doing going all the way over there? You're 92 years old. You should be slowing down. No way. So I think the oldest photo reader was a medical doctor from Buenos Aires who took the program at 93. So no, it's never too late to learn to use the greater resources of your mind.
That's fantastic. Oh, my goodness. And so how did you get started? I mean, so you had this background with your father, and then it's one thing to step into it, but you have developed a whole system and a world of teaching this all over the world, and programs and books and tapes, and so talk about that, because that's, to me, that's extraordinary. It's one thing to have knowledge. It's another that I was sharing at the top of the show. I've never, ever had the experience of anybody being able to teach the way that you teach and share information. You make it so much fun, and you make it so much joyful and so exhilarating to learn that, it's the best. It's like going to a birthday party and a celebration of your life just to learn what's inside of you.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, to get at that question, like how did this all kind of emerge, I want to go to just sort of a fundamental principle, which is there is absolute, complete magnificence within every human being. And if you believe anything less than that about yourself, it's an error. It was a mistaken assumption that was conditioned into you by a culture that's attempting to get you to comply and obey. I mean, think about the traditional educational classroom. What happens? Every 50 minutes, the bell rings. Why? Yeah, I mean, did we ever think about why that would happen? And if you're in the middle of a dialogue like we are right now, Nicole, and we would say, no, we're busy, we're into something really cool, we'd get punished. I mean, they would say, get to your next class right now, right? So where did this come from? This came from the Prussian military model of education back in the mid-1800s. So, the Prussian military beat Napoleon. After having been defeated by Napoleon 8 years earlier, they came back and they whomped him. How'd that happen? Prussian military became the biggest thing on the planet. Well, the way it happened, they turned an agrarian culture into the world's most powerful fighting machine. And the industrialists of the U.S. said, we've got an agrarian culture and we need people to work in our factories. Let's adopt that. And so we literally adopted a system which was designed to marginalize, to exclude, to categorize, to determine who's going to be the infantry and who's going to be the commanding officer, or who's going to be the managers and supervisors and who's going to be the workers on the factory line, right? So it's all about, sit straight, pay attention, be obedient, comply whenever we bark you an order, whatever it might be. So imagine that, as Buckminster Fuller said, that everyone is born a genius. Everyone is born a genius. But by the time we reach the 5th grade, out of 10,000 kids born in the world, 9,999 of them will have been systematically de-geniused by well-intentioned and well-meaning adults who prevent us from exploring our natural world in favor of, sit down, be quiet, and pay attention.
That's
so
a crazy statistic. Wow, sorry. Just got to take that in
stunning.
for a minute.
Yeah, it's stunning when you realize how much neural potential we have. I mean, photo reading, right? This is a process of blasting through written materials at a page a second. I mean, it's astounding. But the reason this works is because we have the neural capacity to do this. For example, the human eye and the brain will process 10 million bits of information per second. But at a conscious level, we only receive 40 bits of that. Well, think about this. 40 bits out of 10 million get to us at a conscious level. That means our conscious mind isn't the part of us that really does this work. Okay, so with all that as a backdrop, Nicole, let me tell you how I fell into this line of work and where the development of all the courses have come from that we've published and sell around the world in 185 countries. So this while I was at the University of Minnesota as a student of biological sciences, through a series of invitations, I got an invite to take a course on how to hypnotize. There was a local hypnotist who my mother knew quite well, and she had to train a couple of psychologists from Michigan and needed to fill out her class. So my mom called me up on a Thursday and said, "Hey, hon, what are you doing this weekend? Do you want to become a hypnotist?" So, here I am looking to save the environment through biological sciences and ecology and behavioral biology, and here I am getting an invitation to hypnosis. Well, it was really a profound experience, and the woman who trained me took me under her wing and said, "Paul, you'd be great at this, work at my clinic, help me out." She was dying of an inoperable liver cancer. She was told she had just 3 months to live. I met her 5 years after that diagnosis. In the 2.5 years that she stayed around on the planet, I took over the oldest established hypnosis practice in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. And here I was, just a junior in college, and my teacher says, "Paul, we've got an invitation. They want a demonstration of hypnosis for a youth group at a synagogue here." And I said, "No way, I'm not a public speaker, I can't do it." He says, "Look, I'll tell you what to do. They're going to pay $150 for a 45-minute presentation." I said, "Tell me what I need to do." I was used to making $1.65 an hour, so this sounded really cool. So I had 10 kids out of the 40 on stage. I was demonstrating hypnosis to them, and I had one kid, he was really tall, he was like 6'3", just towered over me. I said, "Your foot's glued to the floor, you can try to move it, but you can't, it's glued to the floor." He could not move his foot. I mean, he literally unlaced the shoe, pulled his foot out of the shoe because his foot was glued to the floor, right? And then I said, "You could try to tell me your name, but you can't. Try." He could not utter his name. And Nicole, the weirdest thing was, I didn't think, wow, this really works, and man, aren't I powerful. What I thought, the immediate thought that came to me is, oh man, this is what we're doing to ourselves every single day. We take perfectly reasonable resources and we throw them away with the suggestion, "I can't." And so when you listen to people talking, "I can't do art, I can't sing, I can't do math, I'm terrible at math, I'm a horrible writer, oh, I can't spell, I can never remember people's names," I will guarantee you 100% of the time, this is an ongoing hypnotic trance that they are maintaining through self-hypnosis. So imagine, here I am, Nicole, I'm 19 years old, and I'm realizing I'm not supposed to hypnotize people and put them in a trance. I'm supposed to awaken them to who they really are. Awaken them from the trance that they've accepted about themselves uncritically, and as a result have systematically degeniused themselves to fit in. So that became the basis of my lens. Imagine this, 19 years old, I've got this lens, I'm looking at the world, I'm seeing geniuses walking around convincing themselves that they're idiots. And I thought, this is my life's work. There's just no question. And eventually I started learning strategies, corporation, not because I felt I was the most brilliant learner in the world. I believed I was the most wounded learner in the world. But because I had this insight, I was able to take myself out of those trances and really reclaim a lot of the brilliance that had been waiting to come out into the world for me.
It's so, when I'm listening to you say that, and it's so extraordinary, the entire journey, the entire process, and the epiphany of the genius within. And I'm so moved and touched that when you said, when you had this man stuck to the floor, that you didn't think, oh, I'm so powerful, but that you thought, this is what we're doing to others in education, and it's such a testament to your heart and to the way you teach and your desire to help people all over the world. And I just
thank you.
Truly adore who you are. We have a quick question. Somebody piped in on the chat line, and they wanted to know if there is a program for autistic people that would help. And there's somebody also asked, as far as if you're autistic or if you had any brain damage, is there a way to rekindle those cells or be able to have the brain track in a different way?
Oh, that's great. Thank you for the questions. They're both beautiful. And while I will say that I'm not that kind of a doctor, I have noticed some amazing things happening. So I want to share something to me is very exciting, and it's really a matter of researchers taking this on and doing something with it. So it's going to be a story to explain why I believe that our approaches to learning really can help autistic population, and we are seeing a huge rise in autism worldwide. And, there's some debate about why this is happening, but rather than getting into that, even though there is some amazing insight around that and hypotheses around that, I'll just say this amazing story. I was working with Dr. Jerry Wellick at St. Cloud State University, is a professor of special education. So a lot of his students learn to work with kids with special needs, including the autistic population. And there was a summer session, and Jerry asked me to come in and teach one of his sessions and share a photo reading with them. Now, Nicole, you know that when you take a book and photo read it, one of the ways in which we play with it, we turn the book upside down.
Yes.
So that your conscious mind doesn't get involved. It just says, oh, well, this isn't going to do anything. And then you flip the pages while you're staring through the center of the book. And what this does is it allows your brain, with 10 million bits of information per second processing, each of the written pages literally in a flash. Right?
Yes.
So I was showing this to this group, spent a half day with them, and about a year later, I got a call from one of those psychologists that was in Dr. Wellick's class. She said to me, Paul, Jerry told me I had to call you and tell you about this because he knew you'd appreciate this. As a psychologist, she worked with one child who's a high-functioning autistic child all through his path through school. And he, at this time, was in the 5th grade. And his mother saw the distress of her child one day, and he said, Mom, I don't understand fractions in math. I don't understand it. And so she said, well, don't worry, hon. I'll go to school, and I'll pick up some books on fractions, and you can look at them, and we can work on them together. So she brings 3 books back and sets it in front of him, and listen to what this child did. Took the first book upside down and flipped the pages from the back cover to the front cover, flip, 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 set it aside, took the next one, did the same thing. 3rd book, exact same thing. All 3 books, he literally photo-read them upside down and backwards, took the 3 books, handed it to his mother, handed the pile and said, thanks, Mom, now I understand.
Oh.
And that kid went to the top of his class in math. Now, let's take a look at this. When she told me this, I said, oh, my gosh, hang on just a sec. I got to run to my file cabinet. I quick opened my file cabinet. I rummaged through. I found the piece of paper I was looking for. Years before, Dr. Norman Dixon wrote a book on pre-conscious processing. I pulled it out because I used this in the development of the photo reading class. There it was. There was 2 columns. On the left column is this very rational type of thinking. On the other column, it's this sort of very diffuse type of thinking that's associated with the preconscious mind doing the processing for us. Instead of a rational, reflective mind, there's a preconscious processor that does most of the heavy lifting, and then it's the part of us that delivers the 40 bits. Remember I talked about the 40 bits of the 10 million? So it's this part of us that then puts into our conscious mind what it is we think we need to be knowing about what we're looking at. So out of all this billions of data coming in, we can focus in on the pattern that's most important because our inner mind essentially is doing the heavy lifting. And there it was on this chart. There it was. He called it autistic thinking. Literally what I was teaching people to do in photo reading is enter an autistic kind of thinking with respect to blasting through written materials at these enormous rates. Now, as you know, the photo reading step is part of this whole mind system. It's the third step out of 5. And then after that, we activate, right? We bring it into our conscious awareness. But while we're flipping through it and just blasting through it, I was training people to do what this child did naturally. So why? This is the question. Why did an autistic child know to do that? Why did he know if I need to learn something that I don't understand, that I should allow my inner mind to process it? You see, my belief is that that's the normal way of learning. And what we've done with our school systems is we've screwed it up. We start people on this highly focused, narrow bandwidth, conscious mind that can only process 7 bits of information at a time. It gets only 40 bits out of 10 million that are being processed every second. You know, why is it that we've gotten this thing so screwed up, and why was he showing us that this is more natural and more normal? To me, this is very exciting, Nicole.
Oh,
and nobody's ever really done the research on it.
Story. Now, for the listeners, Paul, that aren't familiar with photo reading, and you're talking about the 5 steps, and we're using the word photo reading, could you just share briefly what photo reading is and how it works?
Sure. It originated when a client company, IDS American Express, called us up, and their information systems data processing group were so inundated with written material they could not keep up. They wanted, of course, to slay the paper dragon, as they called it, and they were familiar. They were already using accelerated learning because they'd been working with my teacher, Peter Klein, and so when they called, they said, "Can you do a speed reading course based on accelerated learning?" Well, I was in my master's degree at St. Thomas University here in St. Paul, Minnesota, and curriculum design, human development technology, and adult learning were all part of my degree. So I thought, perfect, that's a project. I'll do it. I designed the course and gave it to these managers, and it was so successful that we decided to launch it for the general public. And that's when I met Pete Bissonnette, the business partner that runs Learning Strategies now, and it's gone all over the world. It's published in 18 languages, and we've sold 1 million copies of the book, and you know it's a remarkable thing. We have trained trainers all over the world. The idea behind it is very simple. If you can think about this accelerated learning model as decode, concert, activate, decoding is getting yourself ready and seeing the book in front of you and deciding, yes, I want to do this. Then photo reading is this concert where you're just this full immersion. You're getting the whole printed landscape all at once. Literally a 400-page novel you could do in a matter of 4 to 6 minutes. Okay, textbooks, just in minutes. A book that would take you 10 hours to read, you'd photo read it in 3 to 4 minutes, and then the final step is you activate it. So activation now is engaging with the book and engaging with your brain to get your reading done in the time you have available at a level of comprehension you need. So that's the purpose of it. Get your reading done in the time you have available at the level of comprehension you need. So what we do is we start you at a page a second. We don't speed you up to that. We literally start you photo reading a page a second in a book. And what this does is it turns on the preconscious processor, which you have always had, and it also engages this vast non-conscious resource. I want to explain the non-conscious if I could.
Please,
as
absolutely.
a hypnotist, as a hypnotist, you think, subconscious control, right? Well, forget about all your illusions about that. I don't do hypnosis anymore. To me, that's old technology. But if you could look at your feet on the floor and see how much space your feet are covering right now, it's a little circle of maybe 12 inches across, right? So imagine that the entire database of your conscious mind, everything you have consciously worked to learn, is under your feet right there. Imagine that's the entire database of your conscious mind. Now imagine that little circle is in the center of a circle 11 miles across. It's 10 billion to 1 what your conscious mind contains. That's a database of your non-conscious mind, or what Dr. Lazanov in Bulgaria called the paraconscious. So forget about whatever you know about subconscious or unconscious and think about it. This is the more than conscious. This is the genius resource that you have within you, and nobody ever showed it to you in school. Nobody taught to it. Nobody spoke to it. Nobody showed you how to speak to it. And as a result of that, we live in far less of the resource than is actually available to us. Einstein has reputedly said we only use about 10% of our brain's capacity. And so I've spent my entire professional life showing people how to use the other 90%. And photo reading is one example. If you could photo read, literally, so you photo read a book in 3 minutes, you activate it in 20, and you can go take a college-level test on it. It's astounding, Nicole, but this is what's possible.
Paul,
so
I remember,
I'm
sorry for interrupting. I remember,
yes.
I just wanted to ask you, when I was taking the photo reading course, we were talking about a woman that learned a language in an airport. And she bought a book or something, and she learned an entire language in an that to me was unbelievable. But, it's incredible that we can actually do that our brain has that capacity.
Yep. I have a yoga teacher who goes into states of yoga meditation, and he's learned 12 languages fluently with his eyes closed in meditation. So, the question, you got to beg the question, okay, hang on just a sec. Why are we making it so tough in school? Why don't we use more of the resources that are really here for us? And we can. That's the neat thing.
I love this.
So we're back. We're back to this autistic child. While I haven't solved the problem of autism, what I do believe is that if a child would learn the photo reading technique, and we have home study courses in which you can do that, they would realize that this is a more natural way to study and learn. Kids with attention deficit disorder, we don't have a limitation on attention. We just have an inability in a traditional classroom setting to engage the full attentional ability of the child that's sitting in front of us. And so how do we really access the full neural potential of a human brain? Autism, it seems to be related to the brain not pruning back these massive amounts of neurons that are in the spray from the midbrain to the forebrain. We're born with way more neurology than we end up actually using, and what it does is it prunes it back. out of disuse. But there seems to be these secretagogues that keep these neural pathways in place in kids with autism. And so, their ability to blend with normal social behavior is it just doesn't seem to be there. But talk about off the charts brilliant. I mean, in many cases, what's called the savant, these are capacities that, we're looking to figure out how we can reliably turn these back on in adults that haven't been accessing it. So I think that's really what we're tracking down. Let's use these kids to help us understand our neural potential.
That's so genius. It really is. The fact that our brain, when you were speaking about just looking at your feet and thinking about the circle and then this huge entire space, and in that moment, of course, you can picture that space. And when you're saying, but this is all we use in our brain, if we think about on a daily basis, how much more we can share and see of the world and of each other, and what a different planet it would be if we can expand our consciousness in such a way. I mean, it's just such a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant thought.
Well, let's take the if off of that.
Okay.
And just put the word as we use this potential, yeah. Because this is what it's about. It's your unlimited life. I mean, it's the name of your show is perfect because this is an unlimited capacity, and we're carrying it around with us on a daily basis, and nobody showed us how to interact with it. I mean, it's almost pathetic. It's so sad that our culture marginalizes capacities of intuition and brilliant insight and psychic ability and healing powers. I mean, you know it as well as anyone, Nicole. We are magnificent, and we can use it.
Absolutely. And then going along this line, so you were talking about paraliminals and how the brain processes information. And can you share a little bit about what a paraliminal is and how that works as well?
Yes, the paraliminal technology. I'm going to share another story because I think
I love your story.
This will help. Okay, this will help make a little more sense of it too. I, at one point, was asked by the Minnesota Dental Association to create a course to help patients in dental settings to have no pain, fear, tension, anxiety, and to be able to recover faster from things like interventions, oral surgery and things. And so I developed a course, and along the way of developing this, I met a Dr. Fred Noah Gordon. Now, Dr. Gordon had been retired as an oral surgeon for a number of years and was teaching accelerated learning and actually just lived down the street from me here in Minnesota. It was really interesting. So we got to be good friends, and he consulted with me on this project as well as on a couple of others as well. One of the studies he did at UCLA was to look at using hypnosis as a protocol to facilitate healing in oral surgery. In other words, the average amount of time it takes for someone to recover from oral surgery is 5 days. If we gave hypnosis sessions to them before they went in and after they came out of surgery, could we reduce the amount of time it took to heal? And in fact, his studies show that it could. Positive suggestion alone. Positive suggestion. Now, you don't have to use trance and all this spooky stuff that people have come to associate with hypnosis. Just imagine communicating with this 11 miles of your brain, right, and saying, hey, 11 miles, what can you do to help recover from this? And could I be painless, and could I, get the results I want? And I had worked with dentists, and I had spectacular results. I mean, you could tell a person that they'd have no discomfort and they could have a tooth extraction, you could say, bleed up to the level of the gum and stop, and it does. I mean, we're talking about control of completely autonomic, non-conscious functions, complete access. It's astounding. Okay, so that all went into the background. Well, Noah Gordon told me this amazing story that during the study that he did, one of the patients didn't heal, like all the rest. 5 days went by and she hadn't healed. A week went by. 2 weeks went by, and he was afraid that she was going to slough off the tissue graft that they had done during oral surgery. So he said to her, would it be okay if I did some regression using hypnosis, take you back through the surgery to try to find out what might have happened? She agreed. So he had her go into hypnosis, and he brought her back through the surgery, and this is interesting, Nicole. She recalled everything that happened during the entire procedure, even though she was in general anesthetic. She recalled not only every procedure in its exact sequence, she recalled every word spoken in the operatory, every single word spoken by anybody in there. And she was just giving this full rundown on everything that happened. And at some point, she tells a story that the anesthesiologist was telling everybody else in the room about his German Shepherd. The strangest thing was, when you ask a dog to walk alongside of you, what you call that? What's the word?
Training. What? Healing.
No, when you have the dog walk alongside of you, you say heel, right?
Yeah. Right.
And the dog is supposed to heel or walk right next to you, right? Okay, so here's what the surgeon or the anesthesiologist said. He said, strangest thing, when my German Shepherd got back from surgery, she wouldn't heel. And Dr. Gordon stopped her in the story and said, now, when you heard the word heel, H-E-E-L, did you think that meant H-E-A-L? And she said, yes. Did you think that when he said she wouldn't heal, that he was referring to you? She said, yes. Did you accept that suggestion, and is that why you haven't healed from this procedure? She said, yes. Wow. Could you remove that suggestion now? She said, yes. He brought her out. 3 days later, she was healed. So he was so blown away by this that he had to get everybody else in the study, all of the other surgeons and operators, all the staff that did these procedures to experience this. So he invited her to come in, and he did the same regression, did the same thing, same story. It all came through, and the anesthesiologist afterwards paused and said, okay, I have a question for you, Dr. Gordon. When she was telling us all of this information, who was speaking? I did the anesthesia on her. She was completely unconscious. And just like I had my epiphany in that youth group doing hypnosis on the stage, that's when Dr. Gordon had his epiphany. He said, that's the accelerated learner. That's this part of us that could take information outside of our conscious awareness. It could discriminate it from other information, differentially respond to it, and completely act on it, even at a biological level, and never even knew that it was happening.
As Paul Scheele continues to share, he is one of the most incredible wisdom keepers in the world. Our original performance was an hour and a half, and you can, again, send a text message to 55678, and the message is simply Nicole, and you can get a copy of this show or any of our archive shows. And remember, as of next week, this will be our lifetime here on Unlimited Life. So wishing you an unlimited life, Dr. Paul Scheele and myself wishing you a happily ever after.